about them Cowboys?
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Stokastic NFL DFS Showdown, live before lock. It's Sunday Night Football, and we got the regular Monday Night Football crew. Wow, what's up? I am Matt Savoca, your host at Draftaholic, and I've got the Showdown Shaman himself, Neil Orfield, to break it all down. This Kansas City-Los Angeles game could be one of the highest scoring games we've had all season. I'd love to see it in a weird showdown year. Hopefully we have some scoring here today. Neil, what's up, man? You excited to break this one down?
Yeah, I'm ready for this game. After watching my Vikings get absolutely trounced in the afternoon, I'm ready for some better football. That was all for me, not only from a Vikings fan perspective, but I also had a lot of that game going in my DFS today. So yeah, the Vikings just completely failing to show up was not ideal for me today.
A little bit of trolling action by producer Tyler there.
Fucking Tyler.
How about them Cowboys?
Only producer Tyler could do it that way. Already some shout outs for you, Orfield 2024. Already some call outs for the Showdown Shaman. Hey, man, I'm really excited for this one. This is a 5.5 point spread. This is a 52.5 point total. And as I said right at the top, we actually have a possibility of an offensive explosion here. Is that the way you're reading this one? Mahomes versus Herbert in Los Angeles in a dome. I believe the highest total game in this week 11 slate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting fireworks. Of course, maybe it's wishful thinking, but it feels like a game where there should be fireworks, right? Pretty bad defenses, pretty great offenses. I mean, the Chargers, maybe that's an overstatement for how great they've been this year, but I expect them to be great at some point. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but yeah, I'm expecting fireworks. Is that how you see it?
I really hope so, man. I really, really hope so. And ultimately, the metrics for the defenses are unimpressive. The Chiefs' pass defense is 22nd in the NFL in Football Outsiders DVOA. They're a little bit better in yards allowed per pass attempt. The Chargers' pass defense, pretty average, 12th in DVOA, 14th in yards allowed per pass attempt. And of course, that Chiefs offense kind of figuring things out. They are down a few players here. We should go into some of the actives and inactives as we start things out here. But ultimately, I want to talk about the ways this kind of goes off the rails first before we really dig into the nitty gritty, because a lot of people are going to be building offense heavy lineups. I mean, that's the way I see it first and foremost. But do you see any reason why we should be playing contrarian lineups, maybe more run heavy or some other type of lineup tonight?
I mean, I'm all about offense. You mean pass game heavy? Because yeah, I mean, I'm probably not playing a ton of these defenses. I don't feel really confident in either of them. But yeah, I think we can definitely go a little bit contrarian and play some of the running game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we're projecting for under 2% ownership at 4,400. What was his snap count? I thought I had this pulled up. Oh, I do have Chiefs snap counts pulled up. What did he play last week? He played 4 total snaps last week. I mean, I don't know, man. Yeah. That's 17 the week before. I'm a little bit tempted to go there now that his price has come down, just because we've seen him troll before. And, you know, we saw it the first week that they said Isaiah Pacheco is going to be the lead back, and I was all about it. And then, of course, Isaiah Pacheco returns a punt like 50 yards, and they just go straight to CEH, and he scores a touchdown. I think that I could see CEH trolling us with a touchdown here today. So I think I'm not going to let him troll. If nobody else is playing him, I think I might fall for some Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What do you think about that?
This is why I love talking to you, Neil, about these showdown slates, because I see a trend line of week 6, 42% snap share, 32% route rate. Week 7, 32% snap share, 18% route rate. Week 9, 15% snap share, 12% route rate. Week 10, 6% snap share and a 8% route rate. That's a trend line. If you can't figure that out. And I'm saying, I don't want anything to do with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And you're just going, no. Why don't you just buck the trend right off the bat here? Look, if we're going to say this is an offensive explosion type game, and there is uncertainty about any position with the second best pass offense in the NFL, even if it is a running back, one that's able to catch passes could be valuable here. So I don't think it's crazy to go to Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but I'm excited to see what we think about this positional breakdown. It's a great game environment. a couple of key inactives here. We knew this going into the weekend. Mecole Hardman goes on IR for the Kansas City Chiefs. Juju Smith-Schuster ruled out. Gerald Everett for the Los Angeles Chargers ruled out here. Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, they are up. They are active, and it sounds like they are going to have their typical workload here. And that's why we're so excited about the offense.
Except for they did say that Keenan Allen is going to be on a snap count. So I think that at least for Mike Williams, I think he's a full go. But I do think the reports, at least earlier in the day, were Keenan Allen will be limited to some extent.
For some reason, I thought I read that both of them were full go. No, you are 100% right. Okay. Well, that might change things a little bit as I build at the very end, but still the fact that both are available. And of course we got Austin Ekeler means that Los Angeles should be able to have the firepower to keep up with the Chiefs today. I mean, ultimately this Chargers pass offense still pretty darn good. We're talking about slightly above average in Football Outsiders DVOA. And I do think that this game, again, has some solid shootout potential. You ready to break this one down from a positional breakdown or team by team breakdown too?
For sure.
All right. Awesome. And let's go with first talking about this awesome BetMGM World Cup offer. Guys, this is one of the best offers we've had from not only BetMGM, but from any partner we've had. Right now, this is truly a turn 10 into $200 offer with just one click. You get access to the World Cup offer from BetMGM with a $10 offer. If any team scores a goal in the World Cup, you got to bet a money line bet, a $10 bet. But when you click the link in the video description below, you get that awesome offer from BetMGM. It is not available in New York, Pennsylvania, or Mississippi. Also, Ontario, you're out. I'm sorry. But this is a truly great offer from BetMGM. Get into the action today. And then let's get into the action over in this showdown slate. The Kansas City Chiefs, they've got an awesome point total here. I do want to break down this Chiefs team first. And let's talk about Patrick Mahomes. He's been incredible over the last few weeks. He's got an incredibly high salary. And so you're going to have to make some salary-based concessions if you are playing him. But look, the guy's third in pass attempts, fourth in air yards, and second now in fantasy points per game. What are you doing with Patrick Mahomes on this slate?
I imagine I'm going to be playing him. I'll be building throughout the show, but Patrick Mahomes is the highest projected player on the slate by 5 fantasy points. And he's not, I mean, he's the most expensive as well, but he's only 400 more expensive than Ekeler. He's only 800 more expensive than Travis Kelce. So I'm going to be playing a lot of Patrick Mahomes. We don't need to talk about it all that. I mean, we can talk about it, but like, what are you going to say about Patrick Mahomes? He is the best player on the slate. He projects the best by far. Actually, I need to pull up our single game tool while I talk about this to make sure that I'm in line with the tools here. But I imagine he's not going to look that bad in the tools given the high projection. Do you see it any differently with Patrick Mahomes?
No, I do not. It looks like he is an optimal play in nearly 63% of lineup. He's the optimal player, in 63% of our simulations. And he is in the optimal lineup as a captain or as a flex play nearly 80% of the time. And that's looking at the tools right as we were coming into the show. It may have shifted just a little bit. We actually have a positive leverage score on him, which means that even though so much of the field is expecting just fireworks, as you said, from Patrick Mahomes, we think you should lean into that. Again, this is the whole thesis of what we're talking about tonight with the possibility of a huge amount of points being scored. You want Patrick Mahomes because he is the facilitator of all of these other options. And honestly, he can correct a lot of wrongs, right? Because if he has a 40-point game and you have one player in your lineup who had 3 or 4 points when you were expecting 10 or 12, he may still get you in over the cash line. You can't say that about a lot of other players. Again, it's that quarterback on a 1-game slate part we always talk about, Neil. He's Patrick Mahomes, man, and he's just back. That's really how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. You don't need to talk that in depth about Patrick Mahomes. Everybody knows who he is. He's maybe the best quarterback in football. He's in a great spot against the Chargers. He's going to be owned. He should be owned. He's probably even under owned, as you say, assuming that, the ownership comes in where we have it. We have seen a lot of quarterbacks getting like 90 to 95% ownership on these showdown slates lately. So it wouldn't surprise me to see Patrick Mahomes coming in a little bit higher than where we project him, but I don't care. I'm going to have a lot of Patrick Mahomes. I just ran my first crunch, and currently I have 70% Mahomes. I wouldn't. Oh, actually, never mind. I hadn't set a cap on my exposure in the captain spot. I have like 100% Mahomes. So.
That's good. I was like, wow. Like, honestly, that's a stand in itself. That sounds like maybe you're going to tweak things as we go through the hour.
I will be tweaking, throughout the hour.
But just to put some stats with the effusive praise we're putting on Mahomes' game, number 3 in adjusted yards per attempt, number 1 in expected points added, the advanced metric that I most look at. Number 2 in QBR, which is ESPN's key metric. Number 3 in player profilers, true passer rating metric. He's accurate. He's efficient. He passes downfield. He's everything you want in a quarterback. And even though he doesn't have some of those secondary options that we really have come to rely on this season, he still has Travis Kelce, and he still has an array of options we can go to. It almost creates this situation, Neil, if I'm not mistaken, where you can kind of mix and match your lineup. As long as you have Mahomes in there, you can use the positive correlation game to kind of attach different options, 1 or 2 options, because we kind of have uncertainty, again, outside of Travis Kelce, no?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great options for this Chiefs passing game and not coming in at crazy ownership. Obviously, we love Kelce. Kadarius Toney only getting 24% ownership, I think, is a fine play. I actually got to 0 of him in my first run, so I will be adjusting that. I want to get to some Kadarius Toney in there because I think he's a really talented receiver, taking on a role in this offense. Definitely interested there. Justin Watson, we have coming in only 21% projected ownership. He's only 1,400, and he is the presumably wide receiver 2 or 3, however you want to see the role of Kadarius Toney here. I mean, Justin Watson with Juju hurt in the last game came in and played 73% of, he actually played the same number of snaps as Travis Kelce in the last game for the Chiefs. He's going to be wide receiver. I mean, however you want to break down. I don't know that there's actually a huge distinction between MVS, Justin Watson, and Kadarius Toney here. I think that any one of them could be the wide receiver 1 in a given week. Do you think it? Do you see it any differently than that?
I was almost saying like shush on Justin Watson. Like, I can't believe how little his ownership projection is right now. And we'll see what the slate looks like once it actually locks. I was seeing some people saying like our ownership projection for Fields was, a little bit off today. That happens, guys. And we go back all the time at Stokastic and tweak these models so that we can get things closer to accurate next time we go out and do it. We're always adjusting these things. But ultimately, Justin Watson, who was in 70% of snaps, 68.6% of routes run last week. Yes, only 1 target. That's the kind of chance I want to take. He had 5 targets in week 9. And we've seen a couple of big play touchdowns from him. He's one of the players I definitely want to highlight. But I think we should move to the running back position where you've already said we might have a Clyde Edwards-Helaire troll job on our hands. But we got to talk about the fact that Isaiah Pacheco, Jerick McKinnon, heavily involved. The salaries are kind of all over the place. The highest salary player is on DraftKings. We got Pacheco, I believe, and then McKinnon. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, is that correct? Yeah,
sorry,
this is a mess. Yeah, it's Pacheco, McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, just slightly under in salary, right? Yes, that's what I'm seeing. And then the ownership's kind of all over the place too. So you're seeing that 2% CEH and saying, well, that's the troll job we could do. But our tools are saying Pacheco actually is the one with the positive leverage score. You're going to be playing Pacheco tonight?
Yeah, I'll play some Pacheco. I'm less excited about it just because he's going to be getting so much ownership. So I'm not going to be taking a big stand on Pacheco. I actually may end up under the field. Currently, I'm only at 12%. The field's at 22%. I don't know. 22% does seem reasonable though. So maybe as I adjust, I'll get to a plenty of Pacheco as well. It's a great spot against this Chargers run defense that has been lit up by several running backs throughout the year. I don't know if I buy it. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we see under 2% projected ownership. I mean, you see the trend line. I see the trend line. Everybody who can read this stuff can see the trend line. But how many people are there out there who are casuals who are not even going to like look at that, or just going to be like, oh, CEH, and maybe don't pay that close of attention and think of him as a guy. So I'm not sure that I totally buy the 2% ownership. Maybe it's wishful thinking on my part that it's actually going to be that low. But it's not based on anything I've read, not anything that I have no reason to believe that Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to take on a bigger role, except that he was a high draft pick for the Chiefs. They did want to, they tried for a long time to keep him very involved. And he was actually, playing fairly well this year. So I just don't think that I have enough of a sample size of him getting no snaps to just completely write him off. It would not be surprising to me at all if he comes in and, sees 30-40% of the snaps in this game. It's not a sure thing. I haven't read anything, no reason to believe it. It's just a gamble that I'm willing to take when the field is not seeing that at all. The field is just seeing the trend line and saying, if the field is going to be playing him 2%, that's the reason to play him, because I think that there is at least a reasonable possibility that Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes in and is at least in the mix. And if he's in the mix and 4,400 now scores that troll receiving touchdown that we see from him so often, I don't know. I think you can pay it off.
Okay. I see it. I absolutely do. And you are famous for picking, what do they call it? Neil's nobodies.
Neil's nobodies. I don't know that Clyde Edwards-Helaire qualifies, but maybe at 2% ownership, he might.
Right. And you're right to kind of speculate that maybe there's an element of brand name to Clyde Edwards-Helaire because he was a first round pick. But ultimately, I look at a player in Isaiah Pacheco, who our tools like, who had arguably his best day as a pro in week 10, playing 58% of the snaps, 16 rushes, 2 in the red zone, ran 16 routes, had no targets, ended up with 82 total yards. That's nearly 20 yards more than he's ever had in a game before. The points weren't there. He hasn't scored a touchdown, I believe, since week 1. But I think Isaiah Pacheco has actually earned a role here. The one thing I will say, and I am far from the biggest film grinder out there, but there have been arguments, reports from the people who are very good at the film grinding element of this, that he just kind of runs really fast and hard into his line.
Yeah,
that is exactly how I'm seeing it as as more of a spreadsheet nerd than a film grinder. I definitely see what they're seeing in that one. Still, Pacheco with a positive leverage score and a very interesting middling salary, I still think is very viable on this high total game, don't you think?
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm not playing Pacheco when I talk up CEH. It's going to be, I'm probably going to have them maybe even in the same lineup occasionally, but I'm going to have lineups with both of them. I think that Pacheco is the likeliest to get the bulk of the carries for the Chiefs. He did have, I would say, his best game as a pro the last time out for the Chiefs. So I'm with you. I think that he earned it. He, at least earned another week as a starter. So he's probably going to get that first crack. But the Chiefs also could be running the ball a lot. So I like Pacheco. I like McKinnon as well. I kind of like all three of these guys. And I think that you can play multiple Chiefs running backs in the same lineup. It's something that in my article that I wrote about Showdown, my evergreen article, one thing that I like to see in some lineups is doing stuff like that, where the field isn't going to want to do it because the field sees 3 running backs and says, I think that this guy is the guy, so I'm going to have him in my lineup, and they don't play the other guys. But oftentimes, if a team is running all over another team, they're going to be running all over them with multiple running backs, as we saw with Dallas today against the Vikings, just ran all over them. And I think that the Chiefs backfield is, one of those backfields we've seen do it many times before. So I like the idea of, in some lineups, having multiple Chiefs running backs.
I especially like adding McKinnon as that second running back in particular, because 19 targets in the last 3 games, 22 in the last 4. That is very appealing to me. Look, the yardage totals haven't been good, but especially if you're talking about DraftKings full point per reception, Jerick McKinnon as sort of that hybrid receiver role, especially when the receiving core of the Kansas City Chiefs is kind of banged up today. That looks really interesting to me. I'm probably not personally going to Pacheco and Edwards-Helaire in the same lineup, but I get if you're trying to be really unique that you might be able to go there. Their salaries could certainly lend themselves to that. And as you said, with that uncertainty and the possibility of, even that low salary Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting up to a 30-40% snap share, not out of the question. That's the kind of uncertainty you're going to try to lean into, right?
And this is where we give that caveat, right? That I'm talking about the Millie Maker. I'm talking about the largest field GPPs. So that is why I have interest in playing them together. Certainly, if you're in a smaller field GPP, I mean, I think it's still viable, probably in a smaller field GPP. If you think that they are going to mix it in, it's probably in a smaller field GPP, I'd be more likely to go to just Pacheco and McKinnon. And, maybe you don't need to be playing Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the smaller field GPPs. But for a Millie Maker, I think that it can make some sense as a roster construction that not a lot of people are going to.
That makes sense to me. Now we move on here to the wide receiver position. We've been talking about it. Kelsey is that elephant in the room, that tight end elephant in the room, but we still have Kadarius Toney, whose salary is way up there now because of his impressive performance. The Eric Lindquist special, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, could absolutely be a factor here. We actually have a solid median projection for him today. And then Justin Watson, who we mentioned as someone we like. Sky Moore in the picture as well. And then maybe you're playing Marcus Kemp. Talk to me about this position and how you're kind of factoring it into your lineups tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be getting to a lot of these guys. I think that I'm going to be mixing and matching. I mean, I'm going to have lineups I'll probably be doing some lineups with different Chiefs receivers in the captain spot too. I think that they're inexpensive enough that they can make interesting captains. Watson, man, just looks so good at 1,400. He is, as I said, he played 73% of snaps in the last game, which is the exact same number that Travis Kelce played. And that is with Juju Smith-Schuster playing 38% of snaps in that game. So he could take on an even bigger role. So I think, maybe MVS. I think that probably I would call Kadarius Toney the wide receiver one. He only played 44% of snaps last week, so maybe I'm jumping the gun here by calling Kadarius Toney the wide receiver one, but I think he's the most talented receiver for the Chiefs, so I think that he's going to be at some point the wide receiver one, and it may be as soon as now. So I think I like Kadarius Toney the best, probably followed by, Justin Watson due to the price tag, then followed by Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I'm trying to think, am I playing? Oh, I'll play some Sky Moore. I don't think that I'm going down to any other Chiefs receivers here, but I think I am going to be playing Sky Moore as well. Sky Moore in the last game where we saw Juju leave early, Sky Moore played 25% of snaps, and he has been. I've seen Mahomes several times this year target him on deep balls. Like he will throw the ball deep to Sky Moore. I don't think they've actually hit on any so far this year, but it's going to happen eventually, I think. So I'm willing to go back there. Once again, what do we have? Sky Moore. We have him at 15.7% ownership. So none of these guys are like unowned. They're all kind of every receiver that I have interest in on this slate is getting at least like 10% ownership. DeAndre Carter probably the lowest as far as ownership at 9.5%. So I hate to see that. There's no real off the wall wide receivers that I'm really interested in here, sadly.
Yeah, it's not one of those. What do we have? Randall Cobb at like $200 on Thursday night. We don't have any of those this time. But yeah, I'm seeing what you're seeing with Sky Moore. Still hasn't had a more than one target game since week 6 here. But ultimately, I'm seeing what you're seeing, a 25% snap share, 25% route rate with Juju out. Kadarius Toney, hey, man, I think this guy's pretty legit. A 43% snap share, a 43% route rate, 5 targets, obviously had that hopscotch touchdown, as I'm calling it.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to pay up a little bit, but I do think I'm going to get there as well. MVS has a projection that is 90% of Kadarius Toney's, and with a significant salary discount, I absolutely think, sorry to sound like Lindquist, but I absolutely think you can go to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. He's a big play waiting to happen, and we've been waiting a while. But if we're talking about Justin Watson, I do think that the middle ground that Marquez Valdes-Scantling presents is kind of interesting today. And we have this added bonus of there's a somewhat of a consolidation. There's only 4 players that we really need to worry about at this position instead of the typical 5 or 6. As you said, if Marcus Kemp is out of your pool, he's certainly out of mine. So I'm going to keep things to Sky Moore or above. I do have a couple of sprinkles of Sky Moore as well. Anything you want to hit on the wide receiver position? I think we hit on that pretty thoroughly, though.
Yeah, I think we talked about it probably as much as we need to. And you don't have to apologize for sounding like Lindquist. I miss him. I haven't done a show with Eric in a few weeks now. So you can sound like Eric all you want to.
Okay, I'm glad you're okay with it. I'm not so sure. That's uncomfortable for me, but we'll work through it. We won't work through avoiding Travis Kelce. He is high salary. And you know what? I have seen some stats that indicate that Derwin James has had some success kind of limiting Travis Kelce. Like they basically play a stop Travis Kelce, have someone else beat us game for the Los Angeles defense, but you still have to take some shots if you're playing multiple lineups. No.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Kelce is one of the better plays on the slate. I think we all know who Travis Kelce is. He's projected for 44% ownership. I'm actually getting above that right now. I don't know if I will end up being above the field on Travis Kelce. I usually don't, but so currently I am, as I said, 44% ownership. We've got him at 13.9% captain ownership. He is the second highest projection on the entire slate here, even higher than. Wait, am I right about that? Let me double check. I believe he is he's the second highest projection on the entire. I mean, he's essentially even with Justin Herbert and just above Austin Ekeler, so kind of in the same grouping with those guys. But we know who Travis Kelce is. If you can fit him into your lineup and ideally leave some salary left over, I would do that. I think that he's a great play.
And I'm looking at it too that in our slate showdown tool over at stokastic.com, that if you look at the optimal lineup percentages for Travis Kelce, they are comparable to the quarterbacks on this slate. And these quarterbacks are pretty darn good. And so I do think, even though he has a slightly negative leverage score, that Travis Kelce presents a fantastic opportunity for ceiling. Look, I even saw it in chat that some people are saying Derwin James is able to limit all top tight ends. And then someone right after says, nope, nobody can stop Travis Kelce. And this is kind of the fun we can have in showdown slates. Look, Kelce's been incredible this year. He's pretty much in a tier of his own as a flex player. Maybe you could argue Ekeler on the other side, but he's first in targets among tight ends, third in air yards, expected fantasy points, unsurprisingly, number one per game, number one in fantasy points per game, number one in touchdowns. This guy's amazing. I don't know how you fade him. What is the smallest amount of lineups where you would feel comfortable fading Travis Kelce? Like if you played 3 lineups, you'd be like, okay, you faded Travis Kelce, but 5, 15, 20, like
what's I mean, it's all about your risk tolerance, right? So maybe you could play 10 lineups with no Travis Kelce. I think that would be reasonable. But at that point, you are understanding that you could be dead by halftime. Like your lineups, he could have multiple touchdowns by halftime, and you're closing your computer, not watching the games anymore. So I wouldn't be comfortable with it, but I think you could, up to 10 lineups. Really, there's no wrong answer, right? Like there are people who might play 150 lineups, and great players could play 150 lineups and fade Travis Kelce just due to the high ownership. I think that would be a reasonable approach. Certainly not the approach that I'm taking, but I don't think that there is a wrong answer. So I guess for me personally, maybe I'd say, I don't know, probably not even 10, probably 5 I could do without Travis Kelce and still feel comfortable with it.
I love the way you contextualize that answer. Obviously, the sharps and the people who know what they're doing with optimizers might make special rules. But for the layman out there, fading Travis Kelce feels like a losing battle unless you're playing a very small amount of lineups and you know exactly what you're doing to try to leverage that. And we do have other tight end options on Kansas City even. Noah Gray has made some noise. He's 3K. He's viable. We have a projection slightly over 3 points. Nothing incredible, but I'm assuming that you're going to a little Noah Gray. Are you getting to Jody Fortson at all?
Yeah, so let me see. Currently, I have a little bit of both. Actually, I currently have 0 of both, which I'm probably going to change. So I got to keep working on this, but I think that I have interest in both Noah Gray and Jody Fortson to some extent. Part of my hesitation is that obviously Trey McKitty looks better. So like currently we have very low ownership on Trey McKitty. I want to see how much that comes up because I don't see him actually getting 4% ownership. He's 2,200. He's the starting tight end for the Chargers. So I assume that's going to come up. But if it doesn't, I'd rather just go to more McKitty probably. But in general, I think, 3.3% projected ownership for Jody Fortson. He is 1,000. The price is right. I think that he is a play more so than any receivers who are getting low ownership. I think that Jody Fortson is in play. Let's see the last game for the Chiefs. He only played 7 snaps. The game that he had played prior to that, he played 22 snaps though. So he did miss a week there. So maybe he missed week 9 and came back, and maybe they were just easing him back in. So maybe we see a little bit more Jody Fortson potentially this week than the 11% snap share. But at low ownership on a showdown slate, I think that he is a reasonable play. I'll probably get to above that 3% at least. Noah Gray played 46% of snaps last week, 40% the week prior. He's played more than 40% of snaps, or at least 40% of snaps every single week so far this season. I think that you can certainly play Noah Gray. I was trying to, I was looking up his actual routes run because I want to just check that. So Fortson has run 62 routes so far this year. Noah Gray has run 137 routes through 9 weeks, which is a pretty reasonable number, and 19 targets. So I think Noah Gray certainly in play in a week where we're missing some of the top receivers and we don't have a lot of low owned options. We have Noah Gray coming in at 6%. I think that that's a very solid play.
See, Noah Gray is really interesting to me because you do have the starting tight end on the Los Angeles side, Trey McKitty, very appealing at that 2,200 spot. But if you're willing to get up 800 more to Noah Gray and play the positive correlation game, pair him with Patrick Mahomes, and then kind of fade Travis Kelce with that pick, I think in large field tournaments, obviously, I don't feel good fading Travis Kelce, but in large field tournaments where so many people are going to take that value with McKitty, why don't you just play that game where you're tying yourself to Mahomes rather than saying Noah Gray is specifically going to score more than McKitty? We have him projected as a median at 70% of what the starting tight end McKitty is going to do on the Los Angeles side. We did get a super chat from Jay. Thank you very much for the super chat. And thank you all for hanging out in chat. We got over 1,100 in here, over 100 likes already as well. Guys, we could even get those numbers even higher, but we got to get to the super chat from Jay. He says, Travis Kelce or Austin Ekeler, which of those top 2 flex options are you going with in a vacuum tonight?
Yeah, in a vacuum, it's a hard question to answer just because they project very similarly. So generally, it's hard to answer in a vacuum because it's going to come down to the lineup construction. Generally, if you're playing, Patrick Mahomes in the lineup and you have him in the captain spot, then I'd probably want to go with Kelce unless you already have 3 pass catchers from the Chiefs in there. If you have Patrick Mahomes in the flex spot without any Chiefs pass catchers, then obviously you're throwing Travis Kelce in there. You want at least 1 pass catcher with him. But otherwise, you could certainly consider Austin Ekeler. And just let me look at the ownership real quick. We've got Ekeler coming in at 40% ownership, Kelce at 44. Projections close enough. I'd say go to Ekeler if you can afford him and still leave some salary on the table. If you're talking about a large field GPP, I guess it also does depend what kind of contest you're talking about. If this is a cash game, I'd probably just go to Kelce because he projects slightly better. But for a large field GPP, maybe the ownership is a tiebreaker there in Ekeler's favor. Although Kelce does project a little bit better, so it's really a toss up. Do you have a better answer to that? Do you have a good answer for this one?
I thought that was a great answer. Don't hedge yourself like that. No, you contextualize it perfectly. My short answer is Kelce. You gave a great long answer, and I'm not going to muddy it up. But if you are talking about one lineup, one cash game, straight up, just by a nose, I'd rather have Kelce. If you chose the other one, I wouldn't argue with you one bit. Any other Chiefs flex players? We will talk about the kickers and defenses all together at the very end. This just worked out a little bit better because you kind of are thinking about those 4, the kickers and defense, those 4 players kind of together. So we'll do that at the very end. Anyone else from the Chiefs you want to highlight before we move on to the Los Angeles Chargers?
No, I don't think that there's a single Chiefs player that we haven't talked about that is in my player pool. So I think we're good.
Marcus Kemp? Are you kidding me? What?
Yeah.
Gosh, devastating.
I'm playing him.
Guys, I do want to talk to you about No House Advantage. They continue to offer incredible contests over there. Awesome interface, awesome way to play. It's the same stats and projections from the DFS streets transferred over to a new platform, and they are offering a great first match deposit bonus up to $50 when you deposit there by clicking the link in the video description below. They have great contests, the Against the House contest, very similar to prop betting if you're familiar with that, or if it's not available in your state currently, the NHA against the house tool is a great place to go. And over at Stokastic.com, we've got tools to help you take down those big prizes on NHA. They've got contests for NFL, NBA, PGA, MMA, NASCAR, and MLB when it comes back. Sign up now with the video or with the link in the video below. All right, guys, we get into the Los Angeles Chargers. Justin Herbert, what are you doing with him? I mean, he's been great this year, but he hasn't been as good. Honestly, sorry, to go off on a little tangent. He has just been a little bit less than what people drafted him in their fantasy leagues, and that makes people perceive him as bad. He has not been bad this year. What are you doing with him? He's a $1,000 salary decrease from Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, he projects much worse than Patrick Mahomes. So he is not as high of a priority for me as Patrick Mahomes is, but we've talked about this a lot. He's a quarterback on a showdown slate, and he is a good quarterback on a showdown slate with good weapons. So I like Justin Herbert quite a bit. We see that he's coming in 9.5% ownership in the captain spot, 8.9% optimal, slightly overowned, but really that's pretty neutral. I'm guessing that I'm going to be actually a little bit overweight to Justin Herbert in the captain spot. And then in the util spot, we've got him at 47% ownership, 51% optimal. So positive leverage in both spots. My latest run, I have above the field on Justin Herbert in both spots. I think that he is a great play. Yeah, once again, not all that much you need to say about him. He is a quarterback on a showdown slate, and he's an actually good quarterback on a showdown slate, getting some ownership, but only 10% projected captain ownership. It's very reasonable. Definitely in play here.
That's what I'm seeing, and I get it. He has not had a great stretch here over the last 5 weeks, but remember, we saw an incredible start to his career, some great game logs in the beginning of the year as well. 23 fantasy points, 24 fantasy points, 21 fantasy points. All of those scores happened in the first 4 weeks of the season. Then he has these injuries to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams really start to pile up. He's had a 19-point game in there already. But because of these 13, 14-point, quote, duds, people are out on him entirely. We're talking about a team who is number 1 in team pass plays per game, number 1 in pace of play. They're number 9 in pass TDs as a team, number 2 in total pass attempts, number 9 in total air yards. This is an aggressive offense that now has Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Austin Ekeler, and yes, they're missing Gerald Everett, but ultimately, I think Justin Herbert is a fantastic play tonight. And I know in our tools, Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, from a point per dollar standpoint, stand out as better than Herbert. But if you wanted to hitch your wagon to him, I don't think that's crazy at all. And the Chiefs defense, they've figured things out a little bit, but we're talking about right at league average in pass DVOA, 14th in yards allowed per pass attempt. We're not talking about figuring things out to the point where they're a lockdown number 1 defense. I think Herbert is in a great spot. And especially if we see shootout potential here, you gotta get some Herbert if you're even playing just a few lineups, right?
Yeah. Same exact page. Yeah, I love playing some Herbert here. I think I'd be probably more inclined to fade Kelce than Herbert. I don't know if that's true. It's very close. I mean, they're in the same bucket. They have very similar projections. Both have relatively high floors and very, very high ceilings. Yeah, I like Herbert quite a bit. You can play him in the captain spot. If you play him in the captain spot, I'm probably going at least 2 pass catchers in the flex. If you play him in the flex, I'd play at least 1 pass catcher with him somewhere else in the lineup. He's a great play.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks, Mitchell. You say nice Santa, Matt. Is it a nice Santa? So I'm not at home base right now. I'm at my family's house, and I personally think it's too early for this individual behind me. I'm not going to say anything. I'm very happy to have a little zhuzh to my set here, but I don't know.
What is wait. This? This is like in what kind of word is zhuzh?
A zhuzh? I don't know. This is a very New York word, I will say. Right. It's a very just general New York word, a zhuzh. Nice.
I like it.
Someone spelled that for us in chat. Everyone understood. Yeah. A little spruce up.
I knew what you meant.
But
I am also, no. I'm on the same page as you. I'm not putting up Christmas stuff this early. This is too early for Christmas stuff. I guess around here, the rule is after Thanksgiving.
After Thanksgiving,
I don't need any Christmas music before Christmas Eve. There is some good Christmas music out there, but in general, I prefer to listen to better music. Like the music that I listen to all year round is the music that I typically prefer. But maybe that's there is some good Christmas music out there.
The only thing I feel strongly about, the Peanuts Christmas album, Vince Guaraldi Trio. That's on my bucket list album. I'm a little bit of a jazz music nerd, but no, that one is a tier above everything else we can slough off until Christmas Eve. I totally get that opinion. I asked Gajeski this same question earlier, and he was like, "Yeah, I tell people my favorite Christmas song is Chief Keef."
I was listening. Oh, that was on the live before lock.
Live before lock.
I heard that. I was like, wait, I heard that conversation. Can I actually? So somebody in chat asked me, how many points do you need from Sky Moore or Justin Watson to be the optimal captain? And I think it really depends on the rest of the game. So the cheap guys, you don't need as much if we have several, like 3 really expensive guys put up big games. So like if you need, like if Justin Herbert, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes all put up, like, need to have them 30+ point games, then you might get away with, 10 fantasy points from Sky Moore might be enough for him to be the optimal captain, because you'll need him to fit in all those other guys in the lineup. So it really depends on the way the rest of the game goes. But in general, I'd say for most game scripts, I would probably say around 15 fantasy points is what you need from a Sky Moore or Justin Watson to be the optimal captain. But it could be fewer if, like, you need them to be able to fit in multiple studs who have really big games. I had to answer that here because I saw it on my phone. I got a message in Discord about it, and I just don't know how to navigate Discord at all. Like it was lost. I couldn't get back to the question, so I figured I'd answer it here.
So you boomered your way into an answer in the right venue, or the wrong venue, the right answer in the wrong venue. Hey, yeah, you're just getting the people the information the way that you know how.
Doing the best I can here.
They need to appreciate that, and we appreciate the super chat from Ryan. Favorite cash game captain tonight. Look, we're talking about range of outcomes, ceiling potential. It's Patrick Mahomes for me, and it's not really that close.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is the optimal captain the most of anybody, so he's probably the guy to go to in a cash game setting.
That's my favorite cash game captain. We spend the whole hour and 5 minutes here talking about the nuances about why you might want to make different choices. And that's why we have some fun here as well. The running back position, Austin Ekeler is dominating the projections for the running back position for good reason for the Los Angeles Chargers. He's got a 19-point median fantasy projection over on DraftKings. No one else has a projection above 2.6 on the Chargers. It really is the Austin Ekeler show. He is very expensive, $11K, and you're going to have to make some concessions, but he is positively leveraged. What are you doing with him tonight?
Playing him. I like Austin Ekeler.
I really think it is that simple.
It is that simple. What else do you need to say about Austin Ekeler? He might have double-digit catches in this game. We've seen it before. If they get behind, he is going to be active. He's going to be used a lot. If they get behind, if they get ahead, he's going to have high volume. He's a great player. He's a great player. He's a great play. He gets a lot of volume. Not really much else he needs. I mean, we could differentiate between Mahomes, Ekeler, Kelce. We've tried to do that a little bit, but it's hard. These guys all project, other than Mahomes, Ekeler, Herbert, and Kelce all project very close to each other. Kind of depends on the rest of your lineup. They're all great plays. One of them is at least one of them is likely to put up a big game, and Ekeler could certainly be that guy. And you don't necessarily need as much correlation as you do with the other guys. So I like Ekeler quite a bit.
He is a 63% snap share player, which is not full time. So what do you need? You need targets and red zone goal line opportunities. And boy, do you get that with Austin Ekeler. He is number 1 in the NFL in targets, number 5 in red zone touches, number 1 in expected fantasy points. So his opportunity value is better than everyone else in the NFL. And oh, by the way, number 1 in fantasy points per game at the running back position. He had a so-so game last week with just 13 fantasy points, but we've seen 24, 36, 24 in the fantasy points column prior to that. This guy's awesome. He's evading tackles at one of the best rates we've seen in his entire career. The salary is not too high. Everybody else at the running back position for the Chargers is a fade for me. Are you getting any Spiller, Michelle, or Horvath, Xander Horvath? All-time name on that one.
No, I'm with you. This is a spot where I'm fading the backup running backs. Obviously, if Ekeler gets hurt in the first half, I'm going to have regrets. But I think that neither Spiller nor Michelle gets enough workload that I feel it necessary to go to them. I'd rather go to some other cheap guys. I'm not planning on playing them. Spiller played 17 and 19% of snaps the past 2 weeks. Michelle played 14 and 16. They just don't really get quite enough volume for me. Of course, they could fall into the end zone at some point, but not high priorities for me.
Ekeler or bust is what we're saying at the running back position for the Chargers, at least. That's how I'm seeing it, at least.
Yep, we're on the same page there.
I'm on the same page that you should get into the World Cup action over at Stokastic.com. Get access to our World Cup soccer package for the entire tournament for just $24.95. That's a saving of over 60% the weekly price. Sign up now and take advantage of the full benefit of the month-long package that includes the projections for every game on DK and FanDuel, ownership projections for main slate contests, showdown projections for large single game contests as well, premium player usage data, premium Discord access, and if you're already a Platinum member, you will have full access to this already. And if you want access to all of this with the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, there is actually a second link we've gone ahead and created. It's $60 for the entire World Cup. You can use promo code World Cup 2022. I'll say it again, World Cup 2022, all one word, or follow the link in the description to sign up. There is a link specifically for the $24.95 World Cup package and the $60 World Cup and Fantasy Cruncher package link as well. Make sure you click the right link for the right package you want. It's going to be awesome. USA plays tomorrow. Going to be fun stuff. All right. Speaking of good stuff here, we got the wide receivers are full strength, or at least much closer to, for the Los Angeles Chargers. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen project out pretty well. But we think, at least in the Stokastic projections, that Joshua Palmer and DeAndre Carter could also make an impact for the Chargers today at that position.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we really don't know what the snap count is for Keenan Allen. I think that we could use a little bit more information there, but it's really hard to gauge exactly how much Keenan Allen is going to play. I think that Mike Williams pretty clearly, I think, steps into that top receiver role. If he's full health, he is the best receiver who's going to play a full game. So I'd say Mike Williams is the wide receiver one here. Josh Palmer, I think, is going to be acting as almost a full-time receiver here as well, something close to full-time at least. And then it's probably going to be a mix of DeAndre Carter and Keenan Allen, most likely would be my guess as far as how often these guys are on the field. So I'm playing. I don't know what to do with Keenan Allen, to be honest. So I think that he's an objectively bad play. If he does come in at 16% ownership and he's only playing like 50% of snaps at 8,600, I almost want to fade him. I almost want to full fade Keenan Allen at 16% ownership. If he were a little bit lower, I'd be a little bit more interested. Currently, I'm just a little bit under the field. I have 12% Keenan Allen. I might just stick with what I have, but I think that he's too expensive for a guy who's going to be on a limited snap count. I don't think he's probably going to have 10 catches for 100 yards. So he's kind of touchdown or bust, and he needs to do more than just a touchdown at 8,600. So you're kind of counting on a lot from him. But we just don't know what the snap count is. So I'm going to have a little bit of him. I'm going to be under the field. I have also only 15% Mike Williams in the flex spot currently. I did give him a thumbs up in the captain spot. Yeah, I've got 20% Mike Williams. So I'm playing a good amount of Mike Williams in the captain spot, more so than the flex spot. But that's just because, Mike Williams is a guy who's not getting a ton of projected captain ownership. We have slight negative leverage on Mike Williams in the captain spot, 6.7% ownership to 6.5% optimal. It's hard to know exactly what his role is going to be in this game, but I'm going to be above the field there. In the utility spot, we've got him at 29% projected ownership, 31% optimal. So a little bit of positive leverage for Mike Williams there. I think that he's a wide receiver one, probably for the Chargers here. Do you see it any differently?
So I think Keenan Allen is one of those players who could burn us with a high target rate. Like his targets per route run could be through the roof in these early games. So he only plays 12 snaps. He only runs 12 routes, but he gets 5 targets on those 12 routes or something like that. I think that is absolutely in the range of outcomes, which makes him a viable play up to be contrarian option tonight. That's how I see it.
I agree with you. That's why I have him in some lineups, because I think that clearly the price tag is too expensive for a limited player. But I do agree with you that he could be getting targeted on just so many of those when he is on the field. He still is going to need to have a good number of catches and a touchdown probably at his price tag. But yeah, I'm on with you.
Okay, there we go. And I'm just like, I'm blown away here. So Dane in chat, Neil,
Yep.
Dane said, holy effing just took down the NFL main mini max.
No way.
Dane, if that's serious, my friend.
How many people are in the mini max?
That's my goodness
number.
Please tweet at Stokastic HOF. Let us shout you out, my friend. That's incredible stuff. First of all, thank you for hanging out on this momentous occasion, chilling with me and Neil. But that is awesome stuff. EMAC shouting you out in the chat, which is probably the most important thing for most people here. But it just shows you what the Stokastic tools can do to help your game out. Holy smokes. And look, Joseph in chat says, Dane, I just got fourth. Guys, that's the kind of day we're talking about. This is awesome to hear.
What it's all about.
And you had one of those days not too long ago, my friend. Just awesome to see. So happy for you guys. Let's talk a bit more about this wide receiver position. Are you going to any DeAndre Carter? Because I do think with Allen as a question mark, Carter running similar route trees to Keenan Allen this year at 5,200. He's not super cheap, but I do have to go there in some lineups.
Yeah, I'm about doubling the field on DeAndre Carter. We've got him at only 9.5% ownership. Again, we don't know what Keenan Allen's playing time is going to look like here, what kind of snap count he's going to be on. DeAndre Carter might be playing a 70-30 split with Keenan Allen, and at 5,200 at 9.5% ownership, that would really interest me. So yeah, I'm just going about double the field on DeAndre Carter. I think that he is a great play at low ownership.
And no, he's not too expensive to play, as some in chat are trying to point out. It doesn't look good in terms of just straight up simulated medium scores and how many times they appear in the optimal lineup. And obviously we do, adjust their scores for that optimal lineup percentage. But what you're looking at is a player who could be on the field much, much more than people expect. And they're sub 10% ownership. Again, this Chargers team could easily score a huge amount of points in a shootout game. I really like 5,200 DeAndre Carter. That's really as low as I'm going. Are you going to Michael Bandy at all?
Not going to Michael Bandy. I've seen Sean V trolling me in the chat because I was it last week that I did a show with Aton, and Aton asked me before the show, if there's one player who's getting no ownership who could score 2 touchdowns, who would it be? And I looked at it, I was like, well, Michael Bandy projects for like 7 fantasy points, so he would probably be the guy. It's not that I loved him, but it was like he's not getting a ton of ownership and he projects really well. And then he did absolutely nothing in the game. He played all the snaps, all the snaps we wanted him to, just didn't do anything in that game. This game, though, we have a couple receivers back, so I don't feel it necessary to go to Michael Bandy. He is 2.2% owned. Maybe he gets in there with Keenan Allen limited. It's not the craziest thing in the world to go there at 2.2% ownership, 1,200 price tag, but that's not a stand I'm taking. I'm taking some different stands here. I'm not playing all of the guys who are coming in at low ownership. I'm just picking some spots here, and he's not one of them for me.
I think that is quite reasonable. Dane confirms that there were 300,000 entries in the mini-max. So first he says 300, and I was like, what mini-max were you in?
Yeah.
Then he clarifies the 300K. Amazing. Smiling from ear to ear for you, Dane. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being in here. Maybe hit the like button for Dane and Joseph getting 4th place for some life-changing results here. And let's hope we get them here in this showdown slate as well. We move on to the tight end position. Trey McKitty, we've talked about. Gerald Everett is out. So it's really McKitty at 2,200 and Richard Rodgers at 200. Break down this position. We've got a total of 7 fantasy points projected between the two of them.
I like them both. So we have, as you said, we've got no Gerald Everett in this game. Trey McKitty, presumably, I mean, he's going to take on that top tight end role here. Trey McKitty has already been very involved in the passing game this year. Let me find his actual routes run. I was looking at it earlier. He's actually he's run a good number of routes already without being the primary receiving tight end for the Chargers. Now we have both Donald Parham and Gerald Everett out. So Trey McKitty is going to look great. Where is he here? Okay. He's run 137 routes already this year. That's a good number. He's only been targeted 11 times, but 137 routes run. And I don't think he has been, maybe he's had one game where he was the primary receiving tight end for the Chargers, but I'm going to love Trey McKitty here. And then Richard Rodgers, we saw the last game played 22% of snaps. I guess that was with Gerald Everett only playing 17% of snaps. So Richard Rodgers still did not get all that involved, but at low ownership, I think that Richard Rodgers is also somebody that I'm going to be playing above the field. Currently, I have 12% Richard Rodgers, and I think I'm going to stick to it. He's coming in at 2.6% ownership. Could be taking on a bigger role this week with Gerald Everett out, but the one that you feel more confident in certainly is Trey McKitty. He's going to be the tight end one for the Chargers, and we've seen him have some decent games already. So he'd be the one that I feel more comfortable in. Richard Rodgers more of a dart throw, probably just a touchdown or bust kind of option.
I don't really have anything more to add there. McKitty is a former third-round pick last year out of Georgia. Kind of league average athletic metrics, but we are seeing a player who in this offense ran 29 routes, got 6 targets, one in the red zone, ended up with 21 total yards. If you're going to be a starting tight end for Justin Herbert, and yes, Gerald Everett is confirmed inactive, yes, Trey McKitty is quite viable at 2,200. I don't think he's super valuable. I will clarify, but I do think he's viable, especially when you are playing Herbert. Let's move on to the defenses and the kickers here. We've had a lot of showdown sludge fests this year, Neil. This doesn't project as one of them, but what do you think about playing either of the Chiefs or Chargers defense? We'll go to the defenses first and then talk about the kickers here.
Yeah, so it's tough. So I actually currently have 0 of the defenses. I don't think that is ideal. I think that you'd probably want to have some in 150 set, but I think that if you're playing 50 or fewer lineups, you don't necessarily need to get to either of these defenses in a game that is probably going to be pretty high scoring. We do have some positive leverage in the captain spot in particular. We've got the Chargers coming in at 1% projected ownership, 1.2% optimal. The Chiefs coming in at 2.5% projected ownership, 3.3% optimal in the captain spot. So a little bit of positive leverage for these defenses in the captain spots, and then very neutral actually in the flex as well. 10% ownership for the Chargers, 10% optimal, 13% ownership for the Chiefs, 13% optimal. I don't know what I mean. That's about how much you should have. That's kind of what this tells us is you should have probably 10 to 15% of these defenses in your lineups. Not a spot that not very sexy in this game. I don't love playing these defenses, but certainly anything can happen in football. Either one of these defenses live to score a pick six. So play him if you want to. Well, what do you think of these defenses?
I don't think they're hyper impressive. I think their offenses are certainly more impressive. If we look at adjusted fantasy points allowed, which is just fantasy points allowed contextualized for the offenses that defense has faced already. So if you face a bunch of superstar wide receivers, it doesn't just completely bash you for that. Los Angeles is technically the better defense, 21st in the NFL in adjusted fantasy points allowed to opposing offenses. The Chiefs actually 29th in that metric. Now, I don't think they're as bad of a defense as the teams around them, the Raiders, the Panthers, the Lions, who honestly look a little bit better, the Falcons. But look, this team has struggled in terms of fantasy points allowed. Now, it hasn't necessarily crushed them in the scoreboard, but I do think it just speaks to the offensive potential of people playing against them. And it also puts a few demerits on the fact that I'm not sure I want to play a whole lot of the Kansas City defense here, especially when I don't think that this game has a ton of sludge fest potential, as we've been talking about. I do see a positive leverage score. I recognize that. That's not really changing my opinion on these two teams' defenses. I do think that the Chargers defense is interesting, especially if you say, okay, Derwin James shuts down Travis Kelce. That's something we have actually seen as a real possibility. maybe that confuses the wide receiver depleted Chiefs enough to the point where Mahomes actually does make a few mistakes. I'm not saying I'm going to do that in a whole lot of lineups, but that's just a narrative I am playing in a couple of my lineups tonight.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable to play some different lineups. Yeah, if you're playing the defense, make sure that it fits with the narrative that you're trying to tell with your lineup.
And you have no limit on the number of offensive players playing against the defense you're willing to do, right?
Correct. Yep. I'm willing to play 5 players from one team against the defense of the other team. I don't know that we've seen it win on DraftKings this year. We did see it win on FanDuel a few weeks ago in that Browns-Bengals game. We saw the Bengals defense being the only play from the Bengals, but it's certainly possible for a defense to be the highest scoring player, or at least the highest scoring point per dollar play for a team. It's less likely in this game than it is in a lot of games out there, but it is certainly possible. So I allow for it. Probably not going to have it today, though.
I think that's fair. It just doesn't look like that kind of night. And I'd love to see a wide open pass heavy game with some actually decent offense. And that would lead us to being able to play some kickers as some salary saver options. We save the kickers to the very end because they often are that missing puzzle piece you need in order to create a quality lineup. Dicker the kicker on Los Angeles is $4K, the cheaper one, but he honestly looks like a pretty good value. What are you doing with the Los Angeles kicker? And then we'll bring things over to Harrison Butker to close it out.
Yeah, I mean, both kickers certainly viable in what should be a high-scoring game. Dicker the kicker coming in with some positive leverage, 1.5% ownership in the captain spot, 3.1% optimal, 16% ownership in the util spot, 17% optimal. If you've got space in there, kickers and defenses tend to be some of the higher point per dollar plays on a given slate. So certainly makes some sense if you want to play some of these kickers. Go right ahead.
And you kind of feel the argument is the same for Butker, yeah?
It is. Yep.
Now, what if you're doing a kind of an interesting lineup where you wanted to make a stupid pun, and so you wanted to play both of these kickers and you wanted to combine their names into something inappropriate, and you say, like, I want to have a dick butt lineup.
I love it.
A dick butt lineup.
That was an NFT.
Okay, cool.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, like this is unoriginal for me, but the dick butt lineup would have, of course, Dicker the kicker, Harrison Butker. And honestly, look, if these drives stall out, we think a lot of these drives could end up in the red zone. The most likely outcome is the end zone, but these projections for these kickers lead me to the possibility I could play one or two kicker lineups as well now.
Absolutely. I think that's very viable and will allow you to get to some of the other expensive, obviously great plays on this slate.
I had to do it. I'm sorry, chat. I'm sorry as we all roll our eyes.
Don't apologize.
As we get closer to 8:20 here. We are just less than 2 minutes from lock here. Thank you all for hanging out on this fine Sunday evening. We had 1,000 people hanging out. We could get the likes up to 200. That would, help to keep the lights on over here. We've got over 175 likes already. I know we could get that going on. How about your favorite captain at a flex position outside of the quarterbacks tonight? Just give the people what your favorite flex captain in a vacuum is tonight, Neil.
Ooh, it might be Kadarius Toney. I'm trying to think outside of I'm entering my FanDuel lineup, so I'm not looking at it as
okay, you don't have to contextualize. You enter your lineups. I want you to win some money tonight. You guys, the Showdown Shaman giving you all the secrets to success here. I actually really, really like that Kadarius Toney call. Follow him at Player Q DFS. At Player Q DFS. I knew what you were.
I'm only on Twitter right now. As long as Twitter is alive, probably you can just look for me on Twitter. Not looking at Mastodon or anything just yet.
We'll be adjusting as need be, but Player Q DFS, it lives on for now. I am at Draftaholic, Matt Savoca. Very happy to be here this Sunday night. Thank you very much to producer Tyler behind the glass. Let's have some fun. Let's have some offense. Let's have some passing, and let's win some more money. Thank you to the Stokastic crew. We will see you guys next time. We got so much tomorrow as well. Check out the Stokastic DFS channel for everything.